Hopefully now then come on shortly, because we'd all like to see it get started. We have 5 groups tonight. We have Bustan are the group from Arda, and then we have Derra West. Then we have Tour na Fulla. In the 4th place we have Temple Glanton, and last but not least we have Rock Chapel in Boston together. So we have 5 groups. It's a long night, lads, and we're hoping to get over as quick as possible without holding us up. I've been about one way or the other, we've been going around and doing all kinds of things for 50 years. So it's time for me to retire. Now the first group have just arrived, and they're from Manister, which is down beyond Manister. So they've just arrived, and we'll be handing over to them shortly. love is fair and lady, 'tis downright hardy in woods and space. Moon and the stars, they were shining. The moon shone so far away o'er the mountain, far away o'er the foam. But if all the fine places I've ever been, there is none to compare with the cliffs of Downey. It's a grand place to be on a fine summer's day, watching all the green flowers that never decay, where the gay rocky pheasants are plain to be seen, making homes for their young round the cliffs of Downey. Take a view of the Shannon, find sight you'll see there. You'll see high rocky mountains on the west coast of Clare. Oh, the town of Kelrush and Kilkee can be seen from the high rocky slope round the cliffs of Downey. I will trace my own footsteps in St. Giles Fair, to the dance halls and cinemas where our stories are told. It is there you will see every lad and Colleen going home from the slope round the cliffs of Downey. Very well to Downey, very well far away, and to all the kind people I'm leaving behind, may my soul ever rest this laid on the green, on the high rocky slope round the cliffs of Downey, on the high rocky slope round the cliffs of Downey. Thank you all.
my love. For love is gentle and love is kind. The sweetest love when first it's new, but love grows old and waxes cold and fades away like morning dew. There is a ship and she sails the seas. She's loaded deep as deep can be, but not as deep as the love I'm in. I know that I sing across the water's wide, I can cross all, and neither have I wings to fly. Give me a boat that can carry two, and we shall go, my love and we shall go, my love.
say there's a very human interest story behind the next group. The next group is from Derrowis, and give a big bowl of us to Derrowis.
And that man there, he told me he was well off before we got married. I suppose he wasn't, he didn't know it, but just wrap it up.
We're Wrenboys of old, and we're here tonight to celebrate the brave and the bold. We have come from Derra to have some fun, and we'll dance and we'll sing till the rising sun. I am the man, the king of all births. That Friday night I was caught on the first. I've been interred since then. I have upon my soul, but I'm proud to be here with the lads in the stole.
a lady to die. I took the lady out. She had a very large appetite. She asked me to take her out to dine. I had in my pocket only four and nine. Four and nine, I never forget. Don't ever take a lady out to dine. You have in your pocket only four. She started off with a party. Then Friday you do. My servant and she said to find the four and nine, I never forget. Don't ever take a lady out to dine. I've in your pocket only four. She then went hard with the coffee. Then she stuffed the chicken and on her bed. I felt the sugar pour down the rain. Four and nine, I never forget. Don't ever take a lady out to dine. You have in your pocket only four. Came the winter and oh, the buffet that lives is he picked with right takes and mine. I picked the eye and four and nine, I never forget. Don't ever take a lady out to dine. Oh, came the buffet and he hit me, but they won't say where. Out through the window, I played with before. Four and nine, I never forget. Don't ever take a lady out to dine. Have in your pocket only four. Four and nine,
lads there from Derrawish. And did you see my Connell there in the green and gold? Wasn't he one of the original Wrenboys in 1959 that rambled into this house here to my mother? Now, didn't he bear the brunt of time well? I suppose one could say he was well preserved. Well, now, I'll tell you a story about another fella from Derrawish. Now, I won't be telling his name now, but you'll all know who I'm talking about. Now, did you know every old shoe gets a stocking? And I can assure you that's true. And any fella here tonight beyond the lookout, if you want a woman, the Stone Races is the place to get it. And especially the Wrenboy night. Hold on, just clap eyes in her there and stretch out the hand. She's only an arm's length away. You see, there was this fella once from Derrawish, and it wasn't too long after the races in Listowel, and he was called John the Shy Man. And not long after the races, he was walking down the street. Holy God, if you saw him, the two legs hardly able to be dragged by him after him. But if you see what was draped onto his arm, he had this blonde beauty. Oh my God, she was hardly 23 or 24 years of age. Blonde hair going all the way down, legs coming all the way up. God, she was gorgeous. And down they go, and who should agree up against the one in the doctor? And John the Shy Man stopped and right proud. He stood back and he said, Doctor, he said, I want you to do so, he said, to my girlfriend Jacinta. And the doctor looked. He said, your girlfriend? Oh, yes, he said, my girlfriend Jacinta. He said, Doctor, he said, I took your advice. And all that said, he said, how do you mean you took my advice? And John the Shy Man said, remember the last day that I was in the surgery to you? You told me to get a hot mama and be cheerful. I did not, said the doctor. I told you you'd a hot murmur and to be careful. Well, it wasn't too long after that at all. And who should arrive into the doctor's surgery on the John the Shy Man? There he was in. And when he arrived inside, he said, to tell you the truth, doctor, he said, that's nothing in the wide of the world, he said, wrong with me. To tell you, he said, I was never better in my life, he says. I'm only here for a bit of a check-up, he said. Because, he said, would you believe it, she said, at my age, aren't I going to be a father at last? And the doctor said, what did you say? He said, I'm going to be a father, he said. Jacinta, my girlfriend, she's expecting my baby, and right proud she was of it. And the doctor said, is that the girl I saw you with down the street? Oh, he said, it is Jacinta, 23 years old. Oh, and she loves me for myself. Oh, many the men that was led astray thinking that. Well, the doctor said, and she's expecting your baby. Oh, yes, he said, expecting my baby. I never thought would happen at my age. And the doctor said, by the way, he said, what age are you? Oh, says John the Shy Man, I'm 83, he said, next spring. And the doctor said, hold on a minute now, he said, I want to tell you a bit of a story, he said. You see, there was this fella living near me at home long ago, and here's me stone lad into fowling. And when the fowling season would open, he was out every day with the gun. And this morning he got up a bit late. And when he looked out the window, just as he was eating his porridge at the table, what should he see? Landed on the ditch outside, only a pheasant, a fine cock pheasant. And not a man to let an opportunity pass him. Didn't the same fella, didn't he run to get the shotgun to go out to kill the pheasant? Now, he was keeping the shotgun right inside the door, right next to the big umbrella. And in his haste to shoot the pheasant, instead of picking up the gun, what should he pick up only the big umbrella? And not realising the difference, out he goes, he points the umbrella at the pheasant. He squeezes his finger on the handle of the umbrella. And what do you think happened, said the doctor? A shot rang out, he said, and the pheasant fell down dead. God, says John the shy man. Impossible, he said, impossible, he said. Someone else must have fired the shot. God, says the doctor, that's exactly what I was trying to tell you.
Woman of the house, my lovely Nell, you're the best of all a story to tell. Oxendera and Tashbanda Shovin Drolin Andera. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the conclusion of the show from the Wrenboys. Got a meal Mahalway Gully. And this August and Nish, in the words of John B. Keane himself, the great patron and writer of the Wrenboys. Ye're best, ye're almighty best.
On the road to Happy Fair, sure I met a man with me. Says he clear and past your idle time. And on me he met white gold, saying the uncle went young. And the old man had the money for the child. Oh my God, when you're done then, you was always in the band. When up and down, Tolman and Gossoon. They watched us be at your way, bakers, bread and company cake, and plenty on your table late and soon. May the snails about his hearts, may the rain so hard and force, may the devil take the very greater soon. He's as greedy as the soul, as a crow behind the plough, that no daggerman from the mountain shining road. On the road to Happy Fair, sure I met a man with me. Says he, come here and pass your idle time. And on me he made quite bold, saying the young will wed the owl, and the old man had the money for the child. On the road to Happy Fair, sure I met a man with me. Says he, come here and pass your idle time. And on me he made quite bold, saying the young will wed the owl, and the old man have the money for the child.
There was another very important family I didn't think about a while ago, and that was the O'Connells. Mike Connell, the paint shop we call him, his father was dancing here with Derraway's 50 years ago. Step dancing. His mother, he said, Mother, since you were here for dinner, he said, we're missing our golden ladle. He said, I'm not saying now you stole it. He said, and I'm not saying you didn't. Never one day, she'd have found the ladle long ago. So now you can't pour freshmen and mothers. There's a change of teams. It's typically close at hand. And he was married and he had 2 kids. And it was his birthday, and he said to himself, I'll stay in bed now late this morning and everything will be done for me. And when I get up, there'll be a great... The wife didn't say a word to him, and the 2 kids didn't say a word to him. And he was very disappointed. So he went out to work anyway, and he went in. When he went into his business, he had a secretary. She said, oh, good morning, boss. She says, it's a lovely morning, and he was delighted. But he said, happy birthday to you, she said. And 11 o'clock came, she brought him in a cup of coffee. He was thrilled a bit. And she says, I'm taking you out to dinner now, she says, later. So, I better leave it, because these fellas are landing. Templing landing, give them a big roll of us, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, Ghost. Sorry, Tony, you're fired. Yeah, we're in. We have these first. So let's. Thanks, John. That's a good pen, John. Try team.
Madw i'r ymcod, ta bail hylle cele, don ihe drolin sio, cwys na ffeile, ta siog yn dio, a ta mairach is gwyla, ta sio brifar is sportwn as biogani hero. Vital ymcod, we hope you'll enjoy our traditional brand show, passing on the traditions that were handed down to us from previous generations. Tonight, our show is to honour those who have passed down those great traditions. So, Marcina Cord, Lanamina Raig, Kyogo.
I put on my hat and I ran with such haste that you know I was bent in a hurry. I came to her door and I rattled the pin. I lifted the latch and I boldly walked in. On seeing my sweetheart, I bid her good evening, saying, "You'll come with me over the mountain." What nonsense is this you've got into your head? Or what notion is this you have taken? 'Tis 12 by the clock and they're all gone to bed. So speak lower, my father will waken. I have courted you here and I think that will do. I have made up my mind to have no one but you. And if you refuse me, sweet maiden, adieu. I must go alone over the mountain. But if from my father and mother I go, they never will think of me longer. And the neighbors around them will not be so slow as to say that no one could do wronger. Sweet girl, you're wasting the sweet hours away. I care not a fig what the whole world might say, but you will be mine by the dawn of the day, if you come with me over the mountain. She looked in my face with a tear in her eye, and saw that my mind was still steady. Then rubbed out the tears she was going to cry. In God's name, my dear, now get ready. Just wait for a moment till I get my shoes. My heart jumped for joy when I heard the glad news. She lifted the latch, saying, "I hope you'll excuse my simplicity over the mountain." By this time the moon had gone down in the west, and the morning star clearly was shining, when we two pursued our journey in haste, to be joined at the altar in Hyman. In peace and contentment we spent that long day. The anger of parents it soon wore away, and I'll never forget it to my very last day, the trip we took over the mountain. Thank you.
My head is grey and my bones are brittle too. Come and sit yourself beside me now, and the tale I'll tell you of the fine young man that once I was in those days of long ago, when we picked those white blackberries in the hills around Listowel. Yes, I was light and hearty then, with hair as black as snow. We wore no shoes in summertime, and we laughed in winter snow. We stood tall and straight, as I now relate, but those years have taken their toll since we picked those white blackberries in the hills around Listowel. Oh, we fished for sea trout in that lovely silver river field, and from Foley's orchard I confess sweet apples we did steal. I felt pinch of fall and an autumn on from the Smirla to Mount Cole, as we picked those white blackberries in the hills around Listowel. In the sports field we played footballers, the goalpost heated guard. We played handball in that area, went home by Bortnar. In the Parson's Wood I oft-times stood, where my first kiss I stole, as we picked those white blackberries in the hills around Listowel. From Ballygrin, Winchurch spire, I see rising from the square, and the castle stands defiantly beside that river fell. Oh, the island race course to that west, once more we now behold, as we pick those white blackberries in the hills around Listowel. So there you had it at my place, of a thread sunny time, at a fire of memory we'll warm, if God will give me time. Across swelling seas and ocean wide will fly my immigrant soul, to where we pick those white blackberries in the hills around Listowel.
my eyes deceive me, or is it but a dream? The golden veil of Limerick with its coat of virgin green. A rarer sight was never seen, or never will again, than that golden veil of Limerick you can view from Barna Hill. When standing on the summit of that ancient Danish rock, you can view each town and city far better than a map. Newcastle West before me lies, Goat Street and Phelan's Mill. You can view them all from Curtin's Lawn at the top of Barna Hill. You can view the River Shannon and the hills far off in Clare, Rathkeil, Croke, Patrick's Well, lovely sweet Adair. Askeaton, Arda, Abbeyfield, Ashford, Charleville. You can view them all from Curtin's Lawn at the top of Barna Hill. To the right is Ballingarry, the chief town of the plain, where Ross, the Lord of Desmond, the stately deer did slay. Where heroic men in days of old, they showed their might and skill. And my burial place is Monaghan, at the foot of Barna Hill.
Sugar him all their organs as the happens of a special underpass and gone through each chain. Birds may be the gun Rex Fatty, oh Rex Fatty, she will give a shame or on start of ocean blue. A close can claim on as an oyster as the road. Stuck in a love, this can run into harmony. The infinite
Tagan dera le gacrod agus tá dera leis an seoin seo an nocht tá sola go winship tanne bas bíle buchas díobh go léir agus míle buchas de vanity tá sin andal a bhaile slán go bhóil agus feic mí siú an blian se cún le cún of dé slán go bhóil. Ladies and gentlemen.
The king of all birds. St. Stephen's Day he was cutting the furs. Up with the kettle and down with the pan, a penny or two to bury the man. We've come tonight to this stroll so grand, to display the gems of our native land, with song and dance and music gay, to chase your worries and cares away. As in the firesides of long ago, the Tour de Fada Run-by show.
my youth, oh, how painful it is to be parting from thee. There are others who love you as I do, and must seek a home over the sea. But no matter where'er I may wander, my love I will never conceal. I will always think on thee, the fonder, dearest home on the banks of the field. On a cliff by the side of that river, 100 feet over the strand, are erected a number of tombstones near the ruins where that old abbey stands, and where oft our departed forefathers from the Sassenach foe had to flee, for to hear holy mass in that abbey away on the banks of the field. Now when I'm in the land of the stranger, away, far away from my home, no whether in safety or danger, my thoughts will fly back to my home, and the familiar friends with whom I sported, back again to my memory I reveal, and the fair maid whose friendship I courted, away on the banks of the field. Now if fortune should fall on me kindly, and I get along through this place, when my life's weary journey is ended, my footsteps for home I retrace, and when death's icy hand is laid on me, you know quite contented I will be to be laid in the ruins of that abbey, in the churchyard in sweet Abbey Field.
Shabon boot gachlo, equi go cruig seg tournanor, barskina man bochel bio, snariftar torish cruig mavron, shemalech maikil namar, shemahezar gil namar, Ni voras fen och vägigen magelamar Ni lauren kåka sorkernoin Is nilga gaire giltrakno Damaden haurige launtefjoj Och det mig gå man går självbjå Shemalech Lamar, Shema Hezer Gelamar, Sona Sheni Voiras Ven, Och Wegigen Magelamar, Shaintar Stare Flashig Joy, Is Lientar Tanta Kaderborn, Ehinten Nog, Kan Chaim Gan Hyo, Kan Selis Nain Tedal Dan Lyon, Shemalech Magil Lamar, Shema Hezer Gil Lamar, Sona Sheni Voiras Ven, Och Wegigen Magil Lamar. couldn't come to this house without asking Paddy the Fat of Tea to tell us a story. Paddy, you tell us a story. Come on, Paddy.
The old people used to always say that there was curtains for cakes and raisins for many things. And there was 2 reasons why they enclosed daughters and nuns long ago. The first reason was this November's evening, like the nuns used to every Sunday evening, these 2 nuns went for a walk. And of course, like all women, they couldn't be stopped talking. And they must have gone further than they intended because the dark fell in them. And when they were returning back to the convent, about 50 yards from the convent gate, there was a crossroads. And there was 2 fellas there expecting 2 women from the neighbouring village to come to town. And in the dark of the evening, didn't they mistake the nuns for the women? And then jammed the nun eggs up against the pier of a wall and outside the road. One of the nuns was old and she got terribly excited and she cried out at the top of her voice. She said, "May God forgive them," she said, "they know not what they do." And the young nun was across the road and she shouted back at her. Then she said, "My fella knows." Well, over in our parish and in the diocese of Limerick, all the priests and their curates used to go to Spanish Point in their holidays in the month of August. They made out there was iodine in the water and to help them for the winter. And the next parish to us at home was the poorest parish in the diocese. And the curate and parish priest struck off and no shilling by either of them. And the first day they were below by the sea, the warmest day that ever came. And every other one of the priests gone in swimming, and the 2 boys above in the strand, one hand longer than the other, and no bathing gear, and worse still, they hadn't the price of it. Anyhow, they went back to the digs that night, and the curate said, he said, "We'll have to go for a swim," he said, "because they'll be asking us when we go home, and we can't tell lies." He said, "We'll go down at daylight in the morning at 6 o'clock," he said, "and we'll go in the nude, and no one will see us." And in they went, and they must have stopped inside longer than they intended. And whatever lookout they gave, seated above alongside their clothes was 3 nuns, taking the warm sunshine in the morning. Well, the 2 boys, they went stiff with the cold inside the water. And eventually they had to come out, and they came out over the back corner. And every tide brings something. When there are 2 big brown paper bags after coming in with the tide. And the curate handed a bag to the parish priest, and he said to him, "Do the best you can with that," he said, "we have to retrieve our clothes." They left, and they were coming up along, and when they were about 15 yards from the nuns, the curate looked back, and there was the parish priest behind him, and the bag down over his head. "Father," he said, "is it mad you've gone?" He said, "Why in the name of God," he said, "did you put the bag down over our head?" "Sure," he said, "if I didn't, wouldn't they all know me?" A terrible bad winter came, and there was this convent over in the middle of the country, and it got desperate cold, frost and snow for 6 weeks, and didn't the nuns run out of turf? Well, they were absolutely frozen, and they said something would have to be done, and the Reverend Mother gave a shilling to an old nun and a young nun with her to go downtown to get turf. Well, I'm not exaggerating, it was the very same as you let out sucky calves in the month of May. They hadn't been out for years, and they couldn't make out the dress up of the people in the shop windows, and they were standing below in the middle of the street. And the young nun gives a nudge to the old nun, and she said, there's the place, she said. A turf accountant, he'll surely have turf. And over with him. And I'll tell you something, some of them bookmakers, they're more greedy than the publicans, and that's bad enough. And when he saw the poor nun coming with the shilling, he was thinking, how will I get it up? And there was 5 or 6 customers there. I want a shilling's worth of turf, she said. Sister, he said, we don't sell turf at all. But he said, as luck should have it, he said, there's a horse running in the next race, Sister Benedictine. And he said, he put the shilling on, he said, and the horse being Juliet to buy another turf for the convent. Of course, the poor innocent nun had the shilling on, and the bookmaker thinking that horse had no chance of winning. And the result came after about an hour. I suppose the power of prayer of the nuns. Didn't the horse win at 20 to 1? And he was going to every pocket and pulling out drawers, and he had to pay the nuns in front of the 5 or 6 who was there. And then left with a spring in their step back to the convent with a big fish to money and no turf and a bad frost. Well, when the Reverend Mother found out where they went, she said, you have the congregation, she said, in the brink of hell to go into a place like that. That, she said, at a public house. Isn't that well? And the young nun piped up and she said, you're all wrong, Reverend Mother, she said. This was a grand place, she said. And there was grand men there, she said. And she said they were educated. She said they were able to speak Latin. Because when we were coming out, she said, one man said to the other, Jesus Marcus, he said, Benedictus Fectus.
We usually, that's what we're going to bunch of Tanya, as I'll bring you in, reach you around the after, I was still after the night. Did me cook on because the winter Listowel, I was the more for the Christian, Vocally and Jolene, but that's in the Killuda, Craig of Leon and Miana. Long live Listowel Wrenboys. From the Tuna for the Wrenboys, Eva, I was down the valley, got a meal of Mahagay.
group tonight, and they have been very patient because it's late, and you have been fantastic, standing out there all night, marvellous, but of course the entertainment was powerful.
I do not know whether it is the point that you're keeping very close together. It's nice to see it anyway. No, we call ourselves the Wrenboys. We're from all over, so give us a big hand. And we play lovely. It's great to get him good clap before we start, for fear we might get it after life. Anyway, we're ready to go, so here we go. couldn't have been between, sir. You're allowed to make one mistake up here. They're going to dance Jerry Molyneux's hornpipe.
Now the wind's like a knife, it goes through me, and with hunger I'm ready to fall. And the snowflakes are swirling around me as I head for the church mission hall. As I hear the sweet song of the skylark, and I list to the curlew sideways. I'll take where the ocean they call me to come back to the land of again. For it's 50 long years since
Listowel many moons ago, and he's buried in the famine graveyard out there on the Listowel Road. So Rodney's story.
Peter was waiting to meet me when I arrived at the big golden gate. "Oh, you're the very woman I wanted," said St. Peter, "'cause there's a few things I'd like to know. Everyone
Everyone that comes here is complaining about what's going on down below. Well, 'tis then for me sooner, says I could tell you, for I couldn't care. Since they started this new way of living, there's neither peace nor comfort down there. Everyone is rushing and fussing. They'd hardly bid you the time of the day. They'd nearly drive over your walk on the side of the road if you didn't keep out of the way. If you went rambling to a neighbour's house, disappointed, that's what you'd be. Sure, you know very well you wouldn't want it. They'd rather be watching TV. Oh, St. Peter, that old television is the greatest curse that ever came into the place. The carry-on of the couples you'll see on that yoke, I think it's an awful disgrace. You think now they'd be sitting down for a nice little chat. Oh no, that's not what they have in their head. Sure, they wouldn't be 5 minutes talking together when they're off making straight for the bed. You'd think they'd be ashamed of themselves to appear like that on the screen. Wouldn't they go and have their diversion somewhere where they wouldn't be seen? Another thing that's going on down below, and I certainly don't think it's right. Instead of going to Mass on Sundays, they're now going on Saturday night. They'll tell you 'tis grand and convenient. Oh, 'tis lovely and handy, they'll say. You know very well why they want it. It's so they can sleep the next day. So the Mass is different now. The old hymns and organs are gone. You've a few youngsters banging guitars and singing a jiggity sort of a song. If you were sitting in the seat in the church and the music started to play, sure you'd feel more like getting up and dancing than you would kneel down and pray. Oh, St. Peter, no one down there wants to work anymore. 'Tis all done with wheels and switches and knobs. Sure, they have machines inside and outside the house now for doing all the different jobs. They've a new contraption now for milking the cow. The old stool and the buckets are gone. Oh, how I used to love to see the froth rising up in the bucket and Jackie in there and his singing his song. I can still see him now, as contented a lad as could be. He'd start off with the green hills of Antrim and finish with the rosy tree. So the cowhouse, 'tis now called the parlour, filled up with big glass buttons and jars overhead, and there's a whole lot of silvery bars. And the cows are brought in 4 or 5 in a row on each side of this big open pit, and with these yokes like galvanized bottles, and one of them up in each tit, and a big bellied lorry comes into the yard and takes away the whole blooming lot. Well, St. Peter, there's a whole lot more I could tell you, but I'm afraid you'll have to wait. There's a few neighbours waiting to meet me. I can see them there inside the gate. But you know, I never thought I'd like to be leaving the place I was born and bred. But with the carry-on that's down there at the moment, I'm really delighted I'm dead.
That was it. But we'll be back again next year for concert. And he will too. Yeah, thank you very much.
Now, a big moon of us there for Sleeve Luca, run by group. Now, what we have to do now is we have to announce the winners, and we also have the King of the Wrenboys, and we have the McDavid Trophy, which will be given to what the adjudicators consider the best act here tonight in any of the groups.